When you're standing in front of a TV aisle and the price tags are flashing, it's easy to feel like you're about to make a gamble you can't really size up. I get that hesitation. You've probably watched a handful of YouTube roundups, read a couple of tech blogs, maybe even skimmed the spec sheet, but you still wonder if the picture will actually look better on your couch, if the sound will fill the room, and whether you're paying for real value or just hype. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The LG 48-inch class OLED evo AI 4K C5 is positioned as a premium, but not massive, entry into OLED territory. At 48 inches it lands in a sweet spot for apartments, secondary rooms, or anyone who wants a cinema-grade experience without turning the living room into a home theater. That size is where the first question comes up. Is it large enough for the space you have, or will you end up squinting at the edges? For many, especially those with modest viewing distances of 68 feet, the answer is yes, but if your primary seating is farther back, you might feel the screen shrink quickly. Let's talk about the everyday setup. Unboxing the C5 is fairly straightforward. The stand arrives pre-assembled, the stand mounting kit is included, and the power cable is just a regular Type-R cord, so you won't need any special adapters. The first thing you notice when you power it on is the perfect black that OLED is famous for. The panels can turn each pixel off completely, which makes dark scenes look truly deep rather than the grayish crush you sometimes see on high-end LEDs. In a dim living room that's watching a thriller, you'll hear the subtle rustle of a character's clothing that you'd otherwise miss. That's the kind of everyday immersion that turns a regular movie night into something a bit more memorable. The AI Super Upscaling is a feature that really matters when you're dealing with a lot of 1080p content or older shows. The Alpha 9 processor analyzes each frame, adds detail, and reduces noise, so even a grainy sitcom from the early 2000s looks sharper than it did on a typical LCD. I ran a side-by-side test with a 1080p documentary I keep on a USB drive, and the OLED's upscaled version held up surprisingly well. The colors stayed vivid without oversaturation, and the edge detail felt natural. For anyone who still watches a mix of streaming, Blu-ray and older media, that upscaling can actually save you from feeling like you need to upgrade every source. Sound is another place where the C5 tries to go beyond the usual TV speakers. Dolby Atmos is baked in, and the built-in speakers are tuned for a wider soundstage than you'd expect from a flat panel. In practice, the effect is subtle. You won't get the full 3D overhead experience you'd have with a separate Atmos bar, but you will notice that dialogue feels more centered and that explosions have a bit more weight. In a small bedroom or a compact living area, the built-in system can hold its own without requiring an external soundbar right away. For gamers, LG markets this model as ultimate gaming. The panel supports HDMI 2.1, low input lag, and a 120Hz refresh rate, which means you can actually push a next-gen console or a high-end PC to its limits. I connected a PlayStation 5 and turned on the Game Optimizer mode. The TV automatically switched to the appropriate picture settings, minimized lag, and enabled variable refresh rate. In a fast-paced shooter, the difference between a few milliseconds of lag and a smooth response is noticeable, and the OLED's fast pixel response eliminates motion blur. If you game at least a few hours a week, those features are not just marketing fluff, they translate into smoother, more responsive sessions. Now let's get into the practical drawbacks. First, the price point of a 48-inch OLED is still higher than many 55-inch LED models that can deliver decent performance in bright rooms. If you live in a sun-filled space with large windows, you'll notice that the OLED's peak brightness, while respectable for its class, can be outshone by a high-end LCD that pushes 800 to 1000 nits. In that environment, you might have to dim the lights more than you'd like, or accept that HDR highlights won't pop as aggressively. Second, OLED panels have a reputation for potential burn-in if static elements sit for too long. LG has added pixel shift and screensaver features, but if you regularly leave a static news ticker, gaming HUD, or a channel logo on for hours, you could eventually see a faint imprint. For most movie and show watchers the risk is low, but power users should keep the screen care settings turned on. Another hidden trade-off is the need for good source material to truly appreciate the display. The C5's Dolby Vision, HDR10, and AI upscaling shine when you feed it native 4K HDR content from services like Netflix, Disney+, or Ultra HD Blu-ray. If most of your viewing comes from low-resolution YouTube videos or older cable feeds, you won't see the full benefit, and